Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of Varsity Aces Live. My name is Darren Cooper, local sports columnist on NorthJersey.com, and we're going to talk about the dead week, the dead period, the 2-week mandatory dead period imposed by the NJSIA coming up starting August 31st. Some strategies for our high school kids and how the coaches are going to deal with that. And joining me, some very special guests. I've got my colleague, Mr. Greg Mattura from The Record at NorthJersey.com. From Wayne Valley, head football coach Roger Kotlarz, and Mr. John Testa Sr., the father of one of Mr. Kotlarz's outstanding players and a longtime youth coach himself. Gentlemen, thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Interesting conversation. My first thing, I want to start with Mr. John. We don't talk to too many parents, and so I would start by just saying, how challenging do you think this dead period will be for your son and all high school athletes?
Well, I didn't think it would be too challenging at first, but then I thought about, the holiday weekend and the dead period and the ability for them to actually go out, go meet friends and party and get together, which, teenagers want to do regularly.
I've heard they do that.
Yeah, of course. And so then I started thinking, wow, that dead period is actually going to be very difficult. They're going to want to go to parties and they're going to want to do things. And we have to keep them home, keep them safe, whatever they've been doing. It's going to be a 2-week period where we have to keep them at home and not at these large parties where apparently, this unfortunate virus spreads.
Roger, I'm going to jump in here. The two of you are actually part of a series of stories that we're doing where we take a look at from football parents' perspective and coaches talking about what it's like with their kids moving towards the summer recess period and into the regular season. You wish that maybe while you understand that the 2-week hiatus, as the NJSIA is calling it, is a good idea, you wish that maybe it had been a little shorter than 2 weeks. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So, first off, I totally, commend what the task force has put together and the opportunity to give our athletes an opportunity to play football this fall and other sports. So, certainly very pleased about that decision. With that said, I think most coaches would agree there is some concern about having such a long layoff. Of about 2 weeks. So, it's tricky because we obviously had a later start this summer from what we're normally used to, in particular in terms of the weight room and just developing their strength, not just for their strength, but more so with their injury prevention. So, we've made some progress certainly over the last month or so in that regard. And my biggest concern was, we're just starting to make some progress, and now to take 2 weeks off from that, from those workouts, I just feel like it kind of negates some of that progress that we've made potentially. So that was one of my concerns. In a perfect world, I would have liked to have seen that period be a little bit shorter, maybe centered around each individual school when they're opening up, and maybe if it was, 4 or 5 days where each school would shut down from extracurriculars during their opening. But, I totally understand the rationale behind the shutdown for 2 weeks and to give schools an opportunity to really focus in on opening up their buildings. But with that said, my biggest concern, again, is just, making sure that the kids are doing everything they can to prevent the injuries for the fall.
Now, I know that you had a Zoom call with the parents on Tuesday evening last night. Could you talk about what your goal was? And then John, from the parents' perspective, could you talk about that call as well afterward?
Sure. So we had a Booster Club parents meeting last night, which went really well. And, during that conversation, one of the things that we wanted to cover was, as we explained, first off, what we are going to do to help our program during that dead period, or it's not a dead period. Really what it is, it's a virtual period. So, we will do everything we can to take advantage of that. So, we'll continue to do some virtual workouts. Along with that, a large portion of our team will continue with some speed training through private businesses. So, we feel like we have a plan in place so this way we don't completely shut down and discontinue our training. But I think so we laid that out to the parents, and we certainly have their support in that regard, and they understand why we're going to continue. But I think the biggest point that we stressed was that we really need the parents to support the idea that we want to limit the amount of exposure that our kids have to mass gatherings. That's kind of the phrasing that I used with them, that we want to stay away from any kind of mass gatherings. And as Mr. Testa mentioned, with parties and things of that nature. From what I've seen and what I've heard, that seems to be where the riskiest behaviors are taking place. It's not necessarily on the field and during practices. To me, it's more so outside the structured environment, and it's when they're on their own, and obviously they're kids and they want to be all together with their friends outside of their teammates. But that's basically, what I urge parents to do, is just be really mindful about, how many people or how many of their friends their sons are hanging out with and where they're going. And we want to limit that as much as possible. At the end of the day, we need everybody to make some sacrifices on the team. And, I know our players are prepared to do that. But I think the execution is probably the biggest challenge. They all want to do that, and they're all on board with the idea. They understand it, but time will, we'll see moving forward if the kids can make those sacrifices. I think every kid on our team certainly feels football is really important, and that's the way we laid it out to them, to say, hey, if this is important to you, you have to make some sacrifices, and we're going to have to. We're not saying that they can't go out and hang out with their friends, but what we're suggesting is, hey, maybe keep it to a smaller group and keep it to guys on the team, things like that.
John, over to you from the parents' perspective. What were your thoughts during the Zoom call with the parents?
Well, as a parent and speaking to the parents, it was one of, we have to help the boys. The boys very much want to do the right thing. They see the season coming up, and they're very excited. But as parents, we have to make sure, like Coach said, that when they go to these get-togethers, maybe it's a couple of friends. It can't be large parties. This 2-week period where they may not have school, it's not party time. This actually is the beginning of the season. It's the first challenge, I guess, is what we were trying to explain to them. And this is the first challenge: staying home, taking care of yourself, not putting yourself at risk, and getting through this dead period or virtual period, and and get to the next level where we start practicing. So as parents, the biggest thing we can do is help them. As Coach said, they all want to do it, but that phone call comes and they want to go to the parties and they want to be social. But I think that they're all dedicated, and I think that with a little help from the parents, that we can get these players to stay home, to realize what's at stake, and to to just pull back a little bit for this 2 weeks.
Roger, when you're making or giving this advice to the players, and I'm sure it's been regularly given by not just you, but coaches all across New Jersey, what kind of looks do you see in the kids' faces as you're telling them to be smart and stay safe?
Well, to be honest, as you explain things to them, they get it. They certainly understand. We've had no resistance, certainly at least verbally, or even in terms of their expression. I think they understand the matter at hand. Again, as I said, they're kids, and as John just said, it's when they get that phone call from some friends, that's when it's, I think, the most difficult challenge. And I think that's where we really need a parent to be really mindful and aware of what their children are doing at all times during this pandemic. But the kids get it. They understand, and obviously we're going to continue to emphasize that. And tomorrow is actually our last in-person workout, and that'll be a major point of emphasis. And we're going to need our leadership to step up and really to kind of back up our points as parents and as coaches. We're going to need inevitably the players to be the ones to lead the way and look out for each other. So, I feel confident that we can accomplish that. I think we do have some strong leadership on our team. I think we have a very dedicated group. They have certainly put in a lot of time and effort into this thing, and they understand the magnitude. They don't want to mess it up, so to speak. So I think we'll get good compliance for the most part from our team. But at the same time, we have 80 players. They're young. And, I think that would be naive to think that all 80 of them are going to be perfect. But, time will tell.
Do you, John, are you among the people, I should say, who thinks that if these kids come out of this, again, the NJSIA is referring to it as a 2-week hiatus. If the kids come out of this, in good condition and testing negative, that we'll be able to make it to the regular season on October 2nd?
I absolutely do. I think that the NJSIAA has done a great job. The governor's office has done a great job of getting us to this point. And I think this 2-week hiatus is a challenge, but I think if we get through that, and I'm confident that we will, I see the boys being able to go out there and compete safely. I think things have gone really well thus far. I think that 2-week hiatus will be a little hiccup, and I think they are on the road down to competing in about 3 or 4 weeks. That would be tremendous.
Roger, when I talked to you a couple of days ago for our State of the Program series, I asked you about the honeymoon period, and after coming off your regional sectional title and regional championship, and you said how honeymoon didn't last real long. Just like the lights just went out in the office.
There we go. We got them.
But that didn't really last long. It's got to be hard to deal with so much uncertainty. As a head coach, I hate to tell you this, but head coaches are control freaks. John, you ever noticed that? Big John, you ever noticed that? Coaches, how hard is it to deal with the uncertainty?
Well, I think as the head coach, and obviously, yes, coaches are controlling. I would look at it more. I think that coaches want to oversee every part of their program, and I think that's important. You want to make sure that you understand everything. So I think as far as the stress of the uncertainty, I think the head coaches are the ones that take on a lot of that pressure. What I've tried to do for our staff and our players in particular is really try to get them to focus on that day or whatever that task at hand is. And I've explained to them on numerous occasions not to worry about the long-term picture because there is some uncertainty. And, let's not worry about that. Let's control what we can control, which is that moment, that day. And whatever it is that we're allowed to do, whatever phase we're in, whatever drill we're doing or whatever conditioning workout we're doing, we're going to do it to the best of our ability. So, I don't think it's been too much of an issue amongst our players.
Right.
A couple of players, certainly reached out to me, maybe during the spring when things were really up in the air. And I think it became scary when the spring sports were canceled and, football was on deck. I think in the early stages, the kids were very concerned because they were we were on deck. And, but that was the message that I really tried to deliver to them is, hey, let's not worry about that stuff because we can't control that stuff and it's out of our hands. Let's control what we can control. And that's whatever it is that we're doing, whether it's a virtual workout or a virtual installation meeting, whatever the case may be, let's concentrate on that. And the one big message I said to the kids is, hey, we're not going to regret working hard through this whole period, being prepared. And you know what, if we get bad news down the road, hey, none of us are going to look back and regret the things that the work that we've put in. However, if we were to kind of slow things down and go into the summer with the idea that, hey, the season's probably not going to occur and maybe not prepare as hard as we could, and now we were to have a season, we certainly would all regret that. So that was the messages that I kind of pushed forward to our players. And, it's been good, especially with each stage. The kids have built momentum because each stage we've been able to do a little bit more. And then certainly last week when we got the good news that we're going to proceed with the season, we have a great sense of energy with our team, a lot of smiling faces out there, even with the hard conditioning workouts and things of that nature. I see a lot of kids are just excited.
John, I'm curious to know the perspective in your house. We teased it at the top of the show, but John Testa's son is an all New Jersey player. And so I'm kind of curious to know what kind of his attitude has been throughout this process and kind of dealing with the uncertainty. Are we going to play? What are practice going to be like? I can't hit anybody. I mean, what's his mind?
Well, I have to say, I can see a change. He was cautiously optimistic at first, and then somewhere in the summer, things didn't really look too good. And you can see, that him and some of his friends were starting to get a little depressed. They really want a season. Like Coach said, they work really hard at this, and you start wondering, if this is ever going to happen. Right. And and things changed each week. There was more information. You got another release. More information. And as it progressed, you could see the excitement start to build. It's funny because I guess almost you take football and sports for granted, and then all of a sudden there's a chance that someone's going to take it away, and they got a little depressed by that. But then they saw it come back, and they saw the light at the end of the tunnel. And then I watched them get really excited and practicing really hard, doing things with an excitement like they're doing it for the first time, even though they've done this maybe their whole lives. But like Coach said, they're really excited. They're kind of locked in. I guess you get that way when you think someone's going to take something away from you. So it's actually been nice to see that, the excitement again. You don't really see that, that far ahead of the season. But I've definitely watched, the different changes that have gone on. But right now, definitely excitement. Like I said, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and I think they're waiting for that.
Roger, do you? We talked to you the other day. Like, do you think your schedule is going to change still? Do you think your schedule is going to have to be changed? Play it forward and be optimistic.
Honestly, I don't think so at this point. But with that said, everything is such a fluid situation. So, I really have taken the approach that, regardless of what happens, it doesn't matter. We're going to proceed. And again, we're going to control the things that we can control. If other programs that in our conference and our schedule decide not to play at the last minute and our schedule changes in any capacity, hey, we'll take it in stride and we'll move forward. We're just excited about the opportunity to play this fall. I don't really care who we play. If we get an opportunity, we'll certainly be really ecstatic about that. And if there's any changes, we'll take it in stride and we'll proceed forward.
Have you given any thought, Coach, after last season's playoff success and the first sectional title since '91 and the beating that team across town? I can't think of their name right now, that team across town. But what the postseason might look like. Have you delved in or given any thought to what a potential postseason could look like? Because there's the plus.
I have certainly put in some thought into that. When the realignments first occurred, just talking to other coaches in the conference, and we were exploring different ideas. I even had submitted a couple ideas to the assigner, Dan Vivino, in our conference. And as of right now, I think everything's on the table. Again, it's sort of the same attitude. Whatever it is that they decide, we're going to be really grateful. With that said, we're hoping that there is an opportunity to play for some sort of title. Whether that's going to be sectional titles, I don't know. It didn't seem like it was going to be that, but I know now there's some more discussion about that. My feeling was that it was probably going to be something along the lines of maybe a conference title, which I think would be absolutely fantastic. But, no one knows for sure at this point. That hasn't been disclosed yet, exactly how they're going to handle that. But I know there are some ideas in place. I think they're just trying to get a final idea on, which teams are in. I think they're just trying to get a final count, when it all stabilizes before they disclose what their plan is. But again, whether it's just the pods where they match people up, I personally, I would love to see some sort of conference championship for the teams that win their divisions.
Roger, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the last practice is allowed to be Thursday, August 28th. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's Thursday or Friday. We're a Monday through Thursday team, so our last workout will be tomorrow.
And then I believe the state is allowing what they're calling a heat acclimatization gathering, or I guess a conditioning gathering on Friday, September 11th. Is that correct? It's optional, though?
Right. So originally, the plan was that all fall sports would begin September 14th. And then in the last message from the state about a week ago, what they mentioned, I think it was football and field hockey, is allowed to start the process on September 11th. Now, we don't have the exact details on that. I'm under the assumption that Friday, the 11th, we're allowed to begin in helmets. That's what we're assuming, and that's what we're planning to do. But again, we're just waiting to get confirmation from the state on that. But our plan right now, what we're expecting is that Friday and Saturday that we would begin practices in helmets. And then this way on Monday, when we return on the 14th, we would actually be on our third day, which is helmets and shoulder pads. That's what we're expecting and hoping.
Are you going to increase the number of Zoom calls that you have during the 2-week hiatus?
Well, we are going to increase from what we've been doing in the last month. In June, we were doing 4 a week. We were doing 2 offensive days and 2 defensive days in terms of installation with our players and through their position coaches. We are going to continue next week with 2. So we'll do 1 offensive one just to kind of review, and we'll do 1 defensive one. And then along with that, we'll actually do 3 days of virtual workouts. So they are going to be, we'll be having virtual contact with them next week 5 times.
John, if you have any advice for parents out there, I know you said stay home, easier said than done. But wouldn't have worked during my teenage years. But what advice would you have for parents as they head into this 2-week hiatus, other than, I guess, nail the window shut?
There we go. I like that line of thinking.
I guess what I did for my son and my family is, you sit down. I had a discussion with them, and like Coach said, they're excited. They understand. You explain it to them, because I find that if you explain it to them and they understand why you're telling them to stay home, that helps a lot. And also, I'm going to try to do some things with the family, do some events with the kids to keep them occupied so that they don't feel like they're home and bored and they want to just run to someone's house. Other than that, to be honest with them, explain to them what's on the line, and, help them get through it by maybe occupying their time. There's not much we can do as parents, but I feel confident that if we did that, especially knowing football players, they love what they do. You have to go out and do that every week and all the practices. So if they love what they do and they want to continue to do it, I think if you're honest with them, they'll understand. And if you help them get through it, I think we definitely can get through it.
Well, that's certainly what we're rooting for here at Varsity Aces World Headquarters. Ms. Mattura, you got anything else? That sounds like a really exciting story.
I could go on for hours and hours. I got to clean the house. I got to clean the kitchen after this. I'm not into that.
I got to do the same thing. I want to thank you, Mr. Mattura, for coming on. Again, you can read his story tomorrow on northjersey.com. And, of course, my thanks to Mr. John Testa. It was great meeting you and talking to you. You had some valuable insights. And Coach Roger Kotlarz from Wayne Valley, who ran in off the practice field, turned out the lights in his office, but we all got straight. He started the beer going, too, from last year. Yeah. I want to thank you all so much for joining us. So before I close, just want to put in one quick reminder, like some of us are from Southern Louisiana, and it's pretty scary down there right now. So if you get a chance, please send up a good word. But my name is Darren Cooper. Remember, let the players play, the coaches coach, and the officials officiate. And let the Varsity Aces tell you what you need to know. Good night, everybody.